So we are back with the delightful and brilliant quantum mystic and eternal optimist, best-selling author, physicist with a spiritual roots, Cynthia Sue Larson. And Cynthia has been diligently and heartfully organizing the International Mandela Effect Conference, as well as another project. And welcome, Cynthia. Thank you for taking time out for this.
Well, it's such a pleasure. And I'm so excited with what you've been doing with sharing the reality shifters stories. That's such a great project.
Oh, thank you. I'm having so much fun doing it and so much fun reading them. And I just love how, people are sharing this stuff that a lot of people would say, oh, you just remember it wrong, or you just didn't see it. Like, people, there's not a bench there that you want to sit on, but then it appears out of nowhere. Oh, you just didn't see it. Like, so it's like, I love it that people actually know that, no, this really did happen, right?
Right. Ever since I started collecting these firsthand reports, I've noticed it really makes a difference for other experiencers. Because previous to this, there was a tremendous tendency for people to doubt themselves.
Yeah.
You would try to explain it to someone what happened, and it's all too easy for people just not to believe it. And just because it doesn't make sense, it doesn't fit in the old paradigm of how the world works. But it sure fits the quantum paradigm, sure fits with quantum consciousness. And then thanks to this advent of the Mandela effect, with people having shared alternate memories, finally, we're starting to get some traction here after all these years.
I love it. And so just in case there is somebody out there who's not quite sure what the Mandela effect is, want to maybe just talk about what that is exactly for anybody who's not quite sure.
Yes. Well, it's been around a long time. It actually predates the coining of the term Mandela effect. Fiona Broome gets credit for that. But before that, there was Art Bell on the Coast to Coast radio show, and probably one of his numerous phone callers and faxes had told him, and they talked about it around in the 1990s. They were talking about how Nelson Mandela, he's the South African, he ended up being president of South Africa, but before that, he was incarcerated on Robben Island, and that was because of political differences primarily. Some of the strategy that was being used. It's a big political story, but the point is, the surprising fact is, a lot of people remembered that Nelson Mandela had died while he was incarcerated in jail. And I'm one of those people. Art Bell is one of those people. Hundreds of people that phoned him back in the 1990s are those people. He got faxes and phone calls. In 2001, he told me about it. But it took another almost decade before Fiona Broome finally, also talking about the same thing that had been kicking around in the background for all these years, it really started building that traction I'm talking about, where it is, okay, he's dead, but he's alive. So what's going on with that? And how can that be? How can we know for sure that we heard a report, a very valid report, that he died? In some cases, there are reporters that remember, like, I talked to him and he passed away. I know that. Right. That's author Eileen Colts. She'll be one of the presenters at this year's conference. Okay. Yeah, and lots of people that live around the world notice that. But this effect, the Mandela effect, it got the name from Nelson Mandela, but it's so much bigger than that, because it basically encapsulates the entire realm of everything that could be remembered differently by large groups of people usually. But there are such things as personal Mandela effects, in other words, reality shifts that we've been noticing also for decades.
Right. Yeah. And actually, it's happened with a lot of people that people remember them dying, like, and it even happened with you, right? Somebody had heard that you had passed away, and it actually heard somebody talking about you passing away, and lots of other famous people, actors and musicians and things like that. And another interesting thing that I'm seeing on the, as I'm reading all these stories on the realityshifters.com website is with music, where people have heard songs before they played. And like that even happened with me as a child. Like I used to sing the song, My Girl, before it was invented, before the song came out, right? And so it's kind of like these things, it's hard to explain, but it's like, where are these things? They appear, they disappear, they're here before they're here, and people remember them, you know, before they happen and all kinds of crazy things, but that's our reality, right?
That's right. And I'm glad that you are collecting these stories and putting them into little groupings so people notice, like, these are mischievous items. That was cute. Yeah, lots of items appear, disappear, transform, and transport. There's a lot of that going on. One of the more common types of reality shifts that's been reported over
Yeah.
more than 20 years on the website, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're,
It's a, because
oh,
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, if you go to the website, then you can see the dates. I think you're putting some of those in yours when you're reading them too. That's good. Preserve that, because that shows,
Right.
because some people will say, well, that's not happening all the way around the world. Oh, yes, it is. And they'll
Yeah.
say, well, it's only been happening the last 4 years. No,
Right.
it's been
Yeah.
going back a long time. You know
Yeah.
it. I know it. But I think what's cool about the website is it's actually documenting it. It provides a journal for all of us
Yeah.
going back,
Yeah.
decades. Like,
Yeah.
this is where it happened, this is when it happened. And then, of course, what you're doing is so beautiful and so priceless, as you're
Oh,
bringing these
thank you.
together and making it so much fun. And
Yeah.
so I know that lots of people who've shared their stories are so excited that you're reading them. So
Oh, that's so great. And you know, the thing is that they some of them are really, really out there, right? Like the first one on this third video that I did is like money is appearing in this woman's pocket in $50 increments, right? And it's like that kind of thing. Like, I totally believe that, because I have had, you know, really wild out there things happen, but like, you know, I'm starting to get, you know, put more of the wilder things in there, you know, and that actually happened in 1998. But you know, that kind of thing where you know, another guy where the money was appearing in his hand as he was making the payment, you know, and that kind of thing. And it's like, I totally believe that, because like our reality is like that. It's like so much more mysterious. And you know, we're just taught to not believe, you know, to shrug that off and go, well, there must be a logical explanation, or he was having a psychotic, you know, whatever. And it's like, no, these things happen.
yeah. And I've had the money ones happen to me, so much so that I put out that book, High Energy Money, because people wanted to know. I would be giving talks on other topics, and that was the thing that riveted people's attention. Like, really? What can happen with money? It's like, oh my gosh, what can happen with money? Lots of fun things. So yeah, the one, I'm so glad you included the story about the money in the pocket, because one thing that you'll notice if you go through the money stories on the Reality Shifters site or in the book is that you'll notice people tend to get the money when they need it. And I think that's really important. It's not
Yes.
greed, it's need. So
Yes.
it's like, and then it starts reassuring most of us who are paying attention that we do always have what we need.
Yeah.
And if we think we need more, maybe we should take a look at that, because maybe everything is better than you realize. Maybe you're
Mm-hmm.
skipping something or overlooking something to be grateful for. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. It's right there.
Yes. You know, and too, it's like, it's not where these people in these stories, it's not like they're deliberately, or so far the ones, you know, they're deliberately manifesting, like, I'm going to manifest money in my pocket. It's like, she, you know, this when she was taking her children, they were so excited about going camping with their, you know, with their grandparents, and she was so worried she didn't have enough money to buy everything she needed, but she really wanted them to go. And it was so, it was this thing where she wasn't saying, I'm going to manifest money. It's like the money was it was like the universe was gifting her, you know. And there was another woman where she was just in such a good mood. So a lot of it happens when someone is just in this mood where they're trusting the universe and not, you know, like this woman, she didn't have her money with her, but she's walking down the street and she's window shopping, and it was kind of a windy day, and all of a sudden a $20 bill like flew into her hand with the leaves that were falling. So she said, I went to the tea shop, you know, and the universe treated me to lunch, you know. And it's like, it was a pleasant surprise, you know.
That's so true. I was gardening in my backyard, because with the pandemic, then we're all baking bread and gardening.
Yes.
Well, I was out there gardening yesterday, and
Yeah.
I found a 1916 Indian Hello nickel just right there, and it was when I was almost done, and I thought, no, let's just do a bit more. I'm having fun, you know, I'm just going to toss and till the soil a bit more.
Yeah.
Move older, there are rocks in there, so I'm rolling boulders and digging and having a good old time, and then that's when I find this. So
Wow. Oh,
it's
there
not.
it is.
Yeah, there it is. You can't. It looks kind of dark, so you can't tell what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my camera's not up to it, but believe me, this is an Indian head. It's got a buffalo on one side, the Indian head on the other. 1916. It's so cool. So who knows what other treasure is in the garden? I don't know. But
Yes. And it's like it's a little gift from the universe, you know, like you know, here you go, you know, you're doing good,
yeah.
you know. Oh, I love that so much. So
Yes.
now, one of the things that I did want to get into today, just because there's, you know, pandemic, lockdown, like now, you know, we're told of all these riots and all the different things. And so it's like, is it okay to allow ourselves, you know, is it okay for us to allow ourselves for our vibration to be lowered into these states of like outrage or fear or hopelessness or whatever, like those, like that's not, to me, I feel like that's not coming from the highest good. Like, is it like our responsibility to sort of like make sure that we're maintaining our vibration, because our vibration is affecting everybody else, right? Like, what can you comment on that? Like,
right. Well, I would say if you happen to fall into these sort of heavy pits of emotional despair or discouragement, then it happens. I wouldn't put anything worse on it so that people feel even worse when they're already feeling that way.
Yeah,
So
right.
If it's happening, then
Because you're going to forget
happens,
about it.
you know?
Fuel to the fire, right?
Yeah, let's not make it any. Yeah, that's terrible. Like you're already feeling like, oh man, I feel terrible. You don't need people telling you that's not okay. Obviously, it's your feelings that are happening.
Right.
However, having said that, you're experiencing it doesn't mean you need to stay stuck there. Emotions are meant to move. So there should always be a flow. That's when you know it's going pretty well. So even if you like pay attention to the good times you've been angry and it's been effective, ideally you don't stay stuck in anger because it drives you, it gives you energy, it builds you up, but you're not going to win a fight in anger.
Mm-hmm.
Not with martial arts, you're not in any form, not even an argument. It just generally doesn't work. So it kind of propels you forward. It gets you to move out of your safety zone. That's good.
Yeah.
But then effective anger then moves into something else. And hopefully along the way, you begin to start listening to other people. We need that right now. When we have difficult times, we need to listen to each other and respect one another more than ever before. I mean, it's always priceless and super important, but during these difficult times, we need to respect ourselves and how we're feeling, all of our emotions. And if you're noticing you're getting stuck in one emotion, then really, I would recommend listen deeply to it. Give it some attention because it's not getting what it needs.
Yeah.
And I'm not recommending stay stuck in it. Obviously, I don't find that efficacious, not for reality shifting, not for enjoyment of life, not even for being productive.
Yeah.
So whatever it is you want to accomplish, you'll usually find more success, like you say, going into the higher level emotional vibe. Everything starting at kindness and compassion and going into thankfulness and gratitude and going up higher to reverence and just that ecstasy of being in divine source flow. I mean, that's where I love to be. I know that's why I'm here on earth, to help share that. I'm sure that I know that's why you're here too.
Thank you. It's just like I when I see that, right? Like when I see, you know, people responding like that, it's like I wish there was something I could do, but there isn't really, right? Like, I mean, I don't know these people, you know, like especially the ones that, you know, we hear stories, right? Because honestly, I personally, in my life, I don't experience racism. I've never seen anyone perform a racist act, like in just with my life and my experience. So everything that I'm being told about racism is what I'm being told, right? So like, that's just an example because of, you know, what I'm hearing about, you know, riots and, you know, then I'm hearing all these different stories that never happened. It was staged. The guy actually even attended his own funeral, you know, and like I hear all these different things and it's kind of like, sometimes I can't separate like, okay, what am I hearing as stories and what am I actually experiencing? Because I don't even know if there's any racism that's happened in the city that I'm in, you know? And it's like, so I'm being told that this is happening. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I get confused about what really is real and what really is stories or embellish, even if something is shown on video. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I have to say that I do know from firsthand experience what it feels like to be on that end of prejudice. And here's why. You may think, why would that ever happen to you? You're blonde, you're white, right? But I mean, you would think so. But what happened is I went to Mexico with my sister.
Yeah.
We were celebrating my birthday, and she was really sweet and took me there. Had a great time. And as part of the experience, I had my hair braided into these, I guess they look like dreadlocks.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think of it at the time. It was kind of like the Bo Derek thing from
Yeah.
10. I thought, well, this is cool, nice hairstyle. And I liked it. So I wore it back. When I came back to California, I'm still got my hair done like that.
Yeah.
And there were little beads at the end. And I thought, this is fun. I'd like to go to a bead shop and check it out.
Yeah.
So with these dreadlocks, it's just me in dreadlocks. I go to the same store I've shopped at for years. And it's the kind of store that you carry a little basket and you put the beads that you want into it, and they should go in the compartments.
Okay.
And something happened on that shopping trip that never happened before nor since. Of course, I didn't wear the dreadlocks again, but I'm sure it was the hair. Walking around and I'm just picking out the beads I want. And then I notice like there's someone following me. It's the shopkeeper, and I'm like, hello, do you need something? And the look on her face, she did not recognize me as a previous customer. She sees the hair and she's just, I guess she's thinking, well, that one's a shoplifter.
Oh, you were labeled.
Yeah, and I'm not shoplifting. I don't do that. But because of the hair, now if that's all it takes, and I'm still white, and that's happening, I'm serious. This person's like, they're not letting me out of their sight. They're watching everything like a hawk. Like, because of my hair, I'm going to steal all this stuff.
Right.
So I can tell you, that's just a few minutes experience.
Yeah.
Wow. That was like, I'm telling you, if that could happen to me, yes. So I would tell you, yes, there are problems with, why should there be an issue with driving while black, or walking while black, or sleeping while black, or sitting on a park bench while black, or any other ethnicity?
Right.
So there's obviously something that's not quite right here. And I think it's good that we're having a discussion about this. I think we need to.
Yeah.
And if people don't believe me, then go ahead and put your hair up like that.
Right.
I know you're not supposed to go in blackface. You don't need blackface. Just a
Yes.
few things, and suddenly you're other, and you'll be on your bad end of that very judgmental stigmatism, and people do it so naturally. So there's a psychology to this. And I think we are not teaching our children how to see each other on the inside, which is what you and I like to do. I think most people who are into this, the vibratory thing, we're not so much looking at the outer appearances. I know I don't. But for the rest of the world, there's definitely an awareness of the superficial skin, the color of your skin, your culture, where they think you're from, what your name sounds like, all these things. So yeah, it's a pretty important discussion we're having.
Yeah. Because it's like, also like, are there parallel realities? So like, are there versions of this reality where that's not happening? Are there different realities and different timelines, and that we can actually shift? Can we shift? Oh, like quantum jumps, right? A quantum jump is what you do it intentionally, right? A quantum jump. So can we do an intentional quantum jump to a reality where that's not happening?
Okay, Dee, this is a really good question, and it gets to one of the central points in the whole topic, which is, can we? Yes, we can. But are we, and should we, and is this something that we're going to see really soon? I'd say no, and no. And why not? Okay, let's take a look at who we really are, because you're not just your head, because in our heads we often think, oh, let's just go there. Wonderful. You human beings are great at that. We have great imagination. It's awesome. But the thing is, we're just one package deal. So we've got the levels, we've got our heart, we've got our gut, we've got our subconscious. And at those levels, do we really need to go through this discussion right now? I say we do. Because until such a time as we're all equally able to see one another the way you and I do, in other words, until everyone is at that level, true hearts, it doesn't matter what they look like on the outside. They could look like an alien, with these little proboscis things coming out of their heads, and, weird colors and the strange skin. And you and I would be kind of looking like, okay, but how are they feeling? And is this a good alien? Is this the kind of alien that would be kind to us. And if we're not able to recognize that, and it's not because there's going to be some huge alien invasion, at least I think, frankly, for those of us who see UFOs, and I have, they've been around for centuries,
Yeah.
millennia, actually thousands of years. So, so in other words, back to your question, are we going to just jump where this doesn't happen? No, because we need the discussion. There are too many people right now that still have to go through it. And it's kind of like no child left behind. We're not leaving anybody behind. So we're bodhisattvas here. We're here to help. We're light workers. We're here for the big show. We're here to say, come on, guys, let's be a little more empathetic. Let's look a little bit deeper on the inside. We can do it.
Okay. So it's like just quantum jumping to reality where everything's cool is just an easy way out.
Yeah, but can it happen? Oh, yes. Does it happen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like right there for us. It's kind of like the dessert. The dessert is always there, but like, are you eating your vegetables?
Right. Because it's like I figure that, if I quantum jump to reality where it's like that, I take everyone with me because everybody is like that there, right? But then I guess like
no. There's no such thing as objective reality, and that was actually scientifically proven in a paper published in 2019 with work carried out in 2018 by researchers at a university in Vienna, Austria, in collaboration with researchers at Edinburgh, Scotland. And what they showed, without any shadow of a doubt, and it's a repeatable experiment, so I'm looking forward to that. It's the famous double slit experiment, considered the most classic, most elegant experiment in all of science, not just physics, all of science, because of the number of wonderful results that keep coming out of it. In this example, they've got two observers at the same place, same time, watching the same exact apparatus and experiment at that same moment with two absolutely different observations, both perfectly trustworthy. Neither one is wrong. Neither one is wrong. That is a showstopper news story. That should have been the cover story of all of 2019. It means there is no objective reality. There's no return to what we think of as classical reality. We're totally in quantum consciousness reality now, and there's no going back. So what does that mean? It absolutely means that things are capable of being in simultaneously two different states at the same time. That means two people can have two different experiences right there together. You can have a witness of something and you can look to the other person. Didn't you see that? They can tell you what they saw, and it might be completely different.
Yeah.
And if you've been judging martial arts tournaments, sparring matches, and so forth, you'll see examples of this. It's famously known, and that's why when you've got several judges in the ring and two people are sparring, even if you're right there, it's not just perspective and angle. You might literally see something different. It actually can happen. That's not spoken of ever. I mean, that's not talked about. Usually the assumption is, well, that person missed it. They didn't see it quick enough. They weren't looking at the right place. Right. But based on what we're seeing in the scientific laboratories, based on what you and I are talking about, based on these reports of reality shifts and Mandela effects, we know this is happening.
Right.
So we don't.
So in the subtitle to reality shifts is when consciousness affects the physical world, or something like that, the subtitle. So what is consciousness? Because it seems like different people define it differently. So how would you define it?
Yeah, there is no accepted definition that everyone agrees on, first of all. So you're right, it's an individual thing. Yeah. And the description, the definition can change, like depending on the conversation and what you're talking about. Right. But consciousness, we know it implicitly. Each of us has a very close relationship with consciousness. And I believe that's what makes it so difficult and challenging to define, because as soon as someone puts out some description of it, obviously there can be some person somewhere that says, well, I'm having a different experience than that. So it's basically consciousness by definition would be our awareness of being aware. Right. And you'll notice the qualia in it, the qualitative feeling of it, it's built right in. And so when you feel like I am aware, like I'm holding this pen right now in my hand and I can feel what it feels like, and I can be the observing and seeing that. It's levels of perceptual awareness, levels of attention. And so when you're starting to have that self-reflection, like this is me, I'm aware of this. This is who I am. I have this feed. The reason it's such an interesting, but that's probably not the best definition, because by this virtue of this, could an artificial intelligence system that's protecting US power grid right now be conscious? Yes, it could, by this definition, because it can be aware. I'm watching the security of the power grid for the United States of America. I can feel what's here, what's me, and what's not me. Bang, it's conscious. So is that adequate? Probably not. I think we are more than an artificial intelligence system guarding the United States electric grid. But is it conscious? You could make a case that it is. So things get interesting when you talk about consciousness. I don't think there's any simple definition other than to say we know what it is. It's what makes us who we are. It's how we pay attention to paying attention. But it's so much more than that. It becomes our identity. For people like me, and I think for you too, if you feel like you're born aware, like you remember what it was like before you were born, that is consciousness. When people tell me like, oh, it's just oneness and we're all one, I have to say that's not my experience, because when I'm between lives, I'm very clear that I'm not God. And that's just me. I'm not God. I'm not oneness. Can I feel and bask in the glow of oneness? Sure. But am I confused and think I'm God? No. Personally, no. So that's where it's such a, you'd think, oh, like everyone would agree on consciousness. Not the case. It's very open to conversation, which is great. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It is, because one of the things I heard that that science actually can't prove that the physical world exists beyond consciousness. Like, would you think that would this physical, so-called physical world be here if there was nobody to observe it? Again, that observer effect comes in here.
Well, I tend to agree with Max Planck, the physicist who coined the word quanta, and where quantum physics come from. Right. And so that's Max Planck who said that that everything is consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. You cannot get behind consciousness. So it's the most basic, fundamental thing there is. But it's so hard to define. I don't know that he was able to define it either. So, but does anything else even exist? It's kind of like the chicken and the egg problem, because when you talk about proving things, then you're back in physical, classical science, where we measure things. That's right. Observations. Anytime you're measuring, we tend to think that's proving. And to some degree that is. But then can you prove consciousness even exists? Not to the satisfaction of a material realist, I would say, because their definition of consciousness, who knows what, it'll be an individual thing. Like I said, it's really difficult to get even two people to agree. This is absolutely the definition of consciousness.
So, but consciousness and reality are so closely linked, are they not? Or could they even be the same thing in some sense? Like, because reality, even reality, what is reality? What's going on here?
Right. Well, I keep going back to the born aware phenomenon, or you could think of it as near-death experience. People that have these extraordinary human experiences, those are great, because then I think we get some real insights there. And from my own perspective, I know that being alive is different than being dead. When I was alive, I was actually preferred to be dead. So I was feeling like, why am I here? This is like, and door number 3, and you get the booby prize. It's like, okay, I'm alive. Wow. Oh, phooey. Because I remembered too clearly what it was like to be dead. I remembered a lot of the good stuff. And come to find out, that's why I'm here. I need to bring that here. I'm pretty sure that you're doing that. I know most of the light workers are doing that. And there's a value when you know that you've got something and you are conscious of something that for whatever reason you can't forget. And bring the joy of that.
Right.
That gives so much hope to the world, so much, because it helps us remember more of who we really are. And on a deep level, I think we all know that we're here to love. That when you think about what are you living for, what answer comes to mind? What are you really grateful for? What does make a difference in your life? Yeah, these are good questions to ask yourself and pull yourself out of whatever hole you might have temporarily fallen into.
Right. And there's that thing about the deathbed something, the exercise or whatever, but to to imagine that you're now on your deathbed, and how are you feeling about how you lived your life. And like, nobody says I should have worked harder. People usually, what they usually say has something to do with love, right? I could have, how much did I love, kind of thing. Or,
Yes.
but then even it's that life that is over. It's the life of that human body, mind body complex or whatever, that is over, but not the beingness that, well, and even like, we think that, the soul is in the body, but like, I kind of resonate with those that say the body is in you. Like, you're not in your body, your body's in you, because it's kind of like we're more expansive. We're more expansive than the body. So we can't fit into a body. The body can fit into us, something like that.
I don't know, but I do agree with the part where you said we're more expansive than our body, because I really feel confined in this body. I feel like it feels like I barely fit in it, if you know what I mean. I think a lot of it, I don't know if people can relate to that, but I sure do. So it's like, how is this even working? And then when you think about God, it's on a magnitude so much bigger even than that. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so great to have that. Last time you brought up the reverence and the awe, and I mean, I just love that so much, because that is so powerful, to have that, that connection with something that's so much greater, and that, that even our human minds can't conceive how great and vast that is, that you can feel, as you say, the love. It's like, it's so true that God is love, right? That's such a good definition of what God is, because it's this incredible, immense love that is, that word unconditional is really thrown around a lot, but unconditional really means there is no condition. And that even means that people who are doing atrocious things are still loved.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's that whole feeling that no matter what's happened, whatever you're blaming yourself, it gets back to that hole again, feeling like you're down in a hole, down in the dumps, feeling like you'll never pull out of it and then some people have reasons for it. They'll say, because I'm such a bad person, because I've done things that are so bad, you have no idea. I get emails like that all the time. So I know people carry that. They feel terrible. They feel like, you can't forgive me. Nobody can. I can't forgive myself. And the burden, the heaviness of it is extraordinary. But you know what? You're exactly right. Guess who can forgive it? God. Guess how much love is there for you no matter what? It's off the charts. It's so much more than anything I can even describe.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, is just recognizing you don't need to carry all of that heavy, heavy feeling of, I'm so bad, this is who I am. That's just some kind of a mask. It's a false persona. You don't need to keep carrying it. And I think that's what we're really looking at with all these riots and the protests and the entire emphasis on skin color. What I told you about me wearing my dreadlocks in the store, not being trusted. Like, they thought for sure I was shoplifting. I'm still white, but I'm wearing dreadlocks. Wow. So, we have to look deeper.
But isn't that a contradiction? I mean, I don't understand this rioting, because it's like, who's rioting? Like, what are they rioting for? Like, isn't it rioting a negative, terrible thing to do? So it's like, what are they trying to prove? Are they trying to say, look how righteous I am, I'm rioting? Like, I don't understand are the people that are rioting saying that they're against racism? Because that's
no.
not what
the riots are different. Thank you for, let's put a spotlight on that, because the riots are one thing and the protests are another.
Okay.
People try to put them together. They're not. Is there some overlap? Maybe, but it's irrelevant, because rioting that's where people are smashing storefronts, right, stealing things.
But what is their intention? Like, what is the reason that they're doing that? What are they trying to accomplish?
It looks like it's well orchestrated thefts that are far more orchestrated than any individual opportunist could ever possibly have worked out in advance. Because not only do they know where the police presence is at any given moment in the city, but to suddenly, surprisingly, have exactly a huge pile of bricks that were stolen locally from some other place. So something's going on that's not it's not the protest.
Right.
There's the protest, there's the rioting, two different things. So thank you for mentioning that, because there is a big difference.
Yeah, because like honestly, I have to confess, I hardly ever watch the news because I don't follow, and most of what I hear about what's happening, I just hear from other people talking about it, just because I don't know why I just have this feeling that I'm feeding, like negative news. I feel like paying attention to it is feeding it, with my
Yes.
energy, and I don't want to do that. And maybe that's the wrong way to approach it. I mean, we always need to stay open-minded to our own beliefs and our own concepts, because I felt like that my entire life, that I didn't pay attention to the news because it was just such a downer all the time. And now I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe am I being irresponsible by not listening? Like people think you have to listen to the news to be informed, but I don't know if that's a certain kind of being informed. Like, I'd rather like read your books.
Yes.
It makes me feel good, and that's we have. We can play with our reality, and there's so many other ways to be informed. There's other things to be informed about, right?
That's
So
right.
I don't know, but it's just, I don't know. I guess I have to. But like, to what degree do you watch the news and are influenced by what's being said?
Very little.
And is
Very
everything
hardly, not much.
Yeah.
I'm very, very selective. It's sort of like dip my toes in, get a
Mhm.
little bit, and then get out again.
Yeah. Because it's like, what is reality, and it's kind of like, and art, and even our go ahead. I see.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There's something really important I do want to emphasize. When I say I'm watching the news a little bit, that's not exactly true. I decide what I'm looking for when I look for news. So remember, I'm a scientific researcher. Okay. So people may not know what that means. What it means is I start with intuition, and something inspires me to say, it's like you're going to look for, like finding that coin I found in the garden yesterday. Something told me, just dig some more. I dig some more, and here's a 1916 buffalo head coin. Okay, sometimes something says, go ahead and search today. For what? Search for quantum teleportation today. So I do, and then something shows up, or superposition, or quantum coherence. So I'm looking for news, but I'm looking for news, in certain topics.
Right.
I do recommend that approach instead of, I think right now that there's this trust of various media outlets. And if you like one and you found one you trust, great. But I like to actually look at source documents a lot. And so obviously there are reporters that are good at whatever they're reporting, and you definitely want to find the ones that you feel have that level of integrity that you can trust, who don't seem like lying something. And because the truth is, all of the major networks, all of the cable companies, I found out the hard way 20 years ago when they interviewed me and refused to use the interview. And I asked why not. And it's basically the miracle side of the Mandela effect, the miracle side of quantum jumps and reality shifts.
Yeah.
And what that producer said, I'm not going to name him and out him, but he told me the truth. He said, well, we filmed all this, but I don't think it's going to show up on massive cable network, which everybody would know if I said it. But he said the reason that it's not going to show up is because we have sponsors that are the pharmaceutical companies. They are selling things. And you are saying that you work with this direct connection to divine source, and you don't need any of these medication.
Right.
And that's a huge risk. Therefore, you're not going to see any. I said, because this is real. I'm not the only one that experiences it. It's worldwide. It's happening everywhere. And he said, you won't see this treated as a documentary anytime soon on any of the major networks.
Yeah.
And this is, to me, the biggest news. So the news that I like is not being covered, never has. In my entire lifetime, it's not been covered.
Yes.
So, yeah.
and that's exactly the thing that I don't like about the news, is because it never empowers people, or I don't know, never, because I can't say never because I don't watch it, but it's just like, I don't hear anything about it. Like when people talk about what's on the news, because if we really had good, honest journalism, there would be a lot of news about all the self-empowering things, right? And there's so many of them, even about, the martial arts and all that. It's like, and all the different spiritual modalities and all the different things where, you're empowered. But it's not, it's feeding this negative energy, right? And it's almost like it's deliberately trying to keep people down. And I don't know how deliberate it is, because you also hear stories that these major networks are owned by you know, these higher ups that are trying to manipulate the masses, and, you know, you keep the masses under control by keeping their vibe low and all that, you know, like you hear all these different things that adds fuel to the fire too. But, you know, then you know, there's all these, you know, the internet comes along, and then you have access to more information, or even like just reading books before, you know, the internet or that. But it's this whole thing about like, so in my vision, you know, in my vision for, you know, a future, or even like, I guess it's even better to call it now than call it a future, because we're now, is where people are learning how powerful they are, you know, with the, you know, the inner source that we have, and the inner power we have, and the connection to spirit and all that, that it's just a common knowledge and a way for us to be living. And maybe that's part of our, you know, shift that we're going through, you know, I guess, because we're going through a collective reality shift, right? Is that what's happening?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's a lot going on. If you look at the astrology of it, it's incredible with I think Pluto's in Capricorn. I can't remember the other ones, but there's a constellation of forces even just in our solar system. So if you follow astrology, it's like, oh my goodness, we haven't seen a configuration like this since America established its independence from the United Kingdom. And some of the factors in play were also happening during the time of the fall of Rome. And yeah, and then of course the whole Rodney King thing, that we're going through the same exact configuration of events there too. So this is interesting. When you look at the three things there, it's like something new is being born, for sure.
Right.
There's a painful birth process happening.
Right.
Birth is sometimes painful, and I think we're having some pains.
Yeah.
Are we going to find our way free from the kind of problems you and I are pointing out about the news media? I don't know. Maybe not, but at least we're going to get some progress, because I think people are having questions. They're wondering even about the thing with the, you know, the difference between the protesters and the people that are rioting, you know, very different.
Yeah.
Personally, some of the Mandela Effect channels, and God bless them all, they're wonderful, but some of them really love the conspiracies. And I'm not personally, that's not where I go.
Right.
And that's because, like you, I think we share this born again kind of a born aware.
Right. Yeah.
Not a born again Christian, but born aware. Just means kind of like born remembering God, remembering heaven, didn't forget it. So it's hard to sell you and I anything, because we already feel like, I think we kind of know what's going on here. And we came in that way.
Yeah. And because it's like, I mean, you know, just for lack of a better word, it's a lot like a dream to me, because, you know, like when you're sleeping at night, your dream is so real, you know, and then you wake up and it was a dream. And it's like with this, because when you're in touch with your infinite nature, it's kind of like there's a feeling of invincibility, because what are you going to do to me? Like, you know, like, what are you going to do to an infinite soul, or to anybody, you know, like we're infinite beings. And so we're here, and we're enacting this scenario, which is our life and our, you know, reality and everything. And it's not to mean that it's just a dream, you know, it's not that we're just, it's like, it's an amazing, incredible, fantastic, you know, dream, play, video game, whatever you want to say. And, you know, like even the video game analogy, people get confused about it, thinking that, oh, someone's controlling you. But I think of it as your higher self. You know, your higher self has the controller, and you're your human self. So you're powerful in the video game. You're not being manipulated by something else. But you know, those are all analogies, because what is really going on is we probably can't even imagine it, because it's so huge and it's so out there. You know, it's kind of like, like, can a newborn baby do like long division? You know, it's like, how can we comprehend how great this all really is and how huge and magnificent it is? We can only compare it to what we know, right?
Right.
Imagine.
That's true. Yeah, I think we're limited by whatever we know. And so that's why we need to respect each other's opinions and experiences, because they are different and they're all equally valuable. There's nobody that's better than someone else. Just because I think I remember God doesn't make me any better than anyone else. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So it's, I think that piece of respecting one another kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know what's, but maybe I hope it used to exist. Maybe it's always been a treasured, rare commodity. But I would love to have people really talk about things openly. Because then we can recognize, like you're suggesting, Like, we are the ones that are dreaming this dream. And, you know, the conference is coming up. Regina Meredith will be our keynote speaker for the International Mandela Effect Conference, happening for free, live streaming. And it's online starting on Saturday, June 20th, and running through Friday, June 26th. And it starts, the first day it starts at 2 Eastern time, which is 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's on the YouTube channel. And the reason I want to just take a time and just shout out to it is because
And I'll
I
put a
know,
link to it too.
oh my gosh,
Yeah, yeah.
such a fan of Regina Meredith. I love her so much. I think if people don't know her, my goodness, you should check
Yeah,
her out, because
yeah.
she's written a fabulous autobiographical book. She also has her own website. She also is, I think, much of the success behind Gaia TV,
Yeah,
because she was
yeah,
one of the founders that got it going.
yeah.
She's still there with her Open Minds with Regina Meredith.
And I love that title, like Open Minds too. And yeah, she's a wonderful
Yes.
interviewer, and yeah, has really interesting guests on, and yeah.
Well, the reason I'm mentioning her in relationship to all this is because that would be, she'll be giving the keynote, and she'll be talking about what brings and unites the 15 of us presenters. And that's her big, in this time that we live in right now.
Right.
And so this will be, she'll be talking about that, about what's going on right now in 2020. People talked about this would be the visionary year, it's 2020 vision, all that good stuff. But in fact, then we find out, what is this? It's like
it came out of nowhere, came out of left field, right?
Right. I know. So I think a lot of people, you know, feel like, okay, 2020, you got some splaining to do. Now that's a Mandela effect right there. You know, if you remember watching I Love Lucy, then you remember that show.
Yes.
Do you remember that phrase from that show? Like, Lucy,
wait.
you've got some splaining to do.
Oh no. Did Ricky used to say that?
Some people remember he did. Like, I remember that, but now he's never said that. So if you don't remember it, that's okay. You know, you're in keeping with modern times.
But you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Ricky Ricardo said something that right after he said it, my sister and I have been saying it for like decades now, like we're for like 50 years or whatever. He pretended that he had amnesia because he didn't want to remember something deliberately, right? And he goes, who am I? What am I? Where am I? You know, so we always say that, who am I? What am I? Where am I? Because we think that those are probably the most intelligent questions. I mean, the deepest questions you could ever ask. Who am I, right? Like, who am I is known as the big meditation question. You know, when you start going, who am I? Who am I? That's when you start realizing your internal nature. But it's so funny, like, who am I? What am I? Where am I? It's like, that's profound.
Very. So that's kind of what we're looking at for 2020. And it brings back to what you were saying, that we're the ones that are making that change. We're having this lucid dream. We're having this awareness. You know, I've mentioned that in reality shifts, that the whole reason that we're here is to be like the Creator made us in the Creator's image, you know, to be cause. We're here to be cause. So why are we here? Because.
Oh.
Yeah, it is profound. And I think it's so profound that we miss it. We don't even notice, like, what is it telling us? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But then we have to remember, it's not just from the head, it's from the heart, from the gut. And so if you've got some issues like we do now, then we need to work through them. And that's happening at all these different levels, you know, nationally and internationally and within all the groups. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Good stuff. I'm really looking forward to that conference. So like, where are you guys getting together? On the East Coast or?
Originally, we would have met together in Connecticut. That was the plan. And there will be some people in Connecticut, but they're the ones who are already there.
Okay.
So we will not be bringing a huge gathering of people together as we had hoped to do, because it doesn't make sense right now. So it's too risky for flooding the hospitals with possible, you know, too many people catching COVID-19. So anyway, so that's not happening.
Will be like on coming in through the Zoom or whatever, like.
Yes. Well, but for questions and for people that the live will be, the presenters will be showing up on screen after each talk live to handle and answer questions that have come in and are still coming in, you know, during the time of their talk. And in the Q&A period.
Right.
So we'll
So
have a couple of moderators.
if we're watching the live stream, we can act, and then the presenter, you say something, and I want to ask you something, then I can
Yes,
put it
you
in the
do
chat.
it. You put it in the chat on the YouTube channel, and
Okay.
we'll have people watching that
Right.
and monitoring that, and then picking the questions up, giving it to the speaker
Right.
or the panelists, because we'll have live Q&A after each presentation. We'll have live Q&A panel at the end of each day with all of the speakers plus the moderators. And Jerry Hicks is our MC. He was the one who was running the conference when we first got together in Idaho, in the Sun Valley area, Ketchum, Idaho. Ketchum's a small town, but I'd never been there before. It's beautiful. It's quite lovely.
So this is the second one?
This is the second time of us who are now creating the 501c3 nonprofit organization, which will be set up to create educational events such as these, as well as eventually to fund research into mind-matter interaction and the Mandela effect. So that's what we're doing. And we've got our website, which is imec.world. You can go there and you can see the entire program and the schedule, find out who's talking on which days, and read the biography and background for all 15 presenters. Yeah. And we should be live streaming the show through that website as well. But if you want to participate and ask questions, the best way to do it is go onto the YouTube channel for the International Mandela Effect Conference. And just you might need to set up an account in order to ask questions, probably. So then make sure you do that before June 20th. And you're all set to go.
Yeah, I'll put both of those links in the description below, because I believe I have them actually. So
thank you.
So yeah, that'll be really exciting. It's great. And then if somebody is not available to watch all of it, can they then later watch a recording?
Yes, it'll be available on both of those websites, the imec.world and also the YouTube channel for International Mandela Effect Conference. So, and it's going to be one huge live stream per day. So it's going to be like 6 hours of uncut footage. There'll be a break for dinner for the East Coast time, as if we were in Connecticut. We are in our hearts. And then later it'll get divided up into nice little bite-sized pieces. So each talk with the Q&A will hold together, and then the panel for that day. So that's this channel to subscribe to get the notifications, and then when the pieces come out later, it'll be easy to view them. We'll have some interviews also conducted by the host of this year's event, who is the vice president of the International Mandela Effect Conference, quantum businessman Christopher Anatra. And he'll be interviewing some of the people that people may have heard of, although they have written books, such as Dale Dufay he wrote a book called Terras of the Milky Way. He's one of our presenters this year, and Christopher will be talking to him. And many of the other people who are giving talks will be interviewed. I think Moneybag73, that's the name of the channel on YouTube. That's Evan Maitreya, and Christopher Anatra will be interviewing him.
Oh, okay.
It's a great way to kind of get to know the people before they give their talk. And so if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get to see those in addition to the conference as it's live streaming. So
okay. Oh, cool. So that's on, those interviews are on during the conference or before?
They'll be, I think they'll be ready before, and so we can pre-release them probably the day that each of the speakers and presenters will be coming on. We're still working out so many details, because originally we thought this would be a live conference, and so then we switched gears totally and said, let's do it anyway. Let's make it happen. Originally it was 3 days, and we thought, let's stretch it out to 6 days. We can handle the technical aspects better and get a little bit more time for the panels and so forth. So it's not just this big crunch, which we would have done in person, because people usually only have a weekend. But now we're giving it more time. And so people, if they want to join in on a certain date, you'll know what day, what talk it is.
Right.
And if you miss it, you can catch it later. So
yeah, which is perfect, right? Because probably not everybody can watch the whole thing all at once, with other commitments, but you don't want to miss any of it. So it's good that you can watch the recordings. And your topic was your topic something about voyage? Or?
The voyage of the Mandela effect. Yeah. And so I'll be talking about the adventure that some scientists love, or why they get into science in the first place. And I'll be talking about that journey of discovery and how we go through that with the Mandela effect. And I've got some surprises in the talk. I'll be talking about a cousin of mine who
Oh,
he's a very famous scientist. A lot of people don't know he's my cousin. I've never mentioned it, I don't
oh,
think, ever. So one of my hobbies is genealogy. So in the
oh,
process of looking into that, I sometimes find interesting things.
right.
Found out something very interesting.
Oh,
Okay, I'll give
well,
you some
I hear.
clues. I'll give you clues. I'll draw scientific terms. And people, if they're hip to it and they know it, then they'll know who it is.
Oh,
So some of the terminology that the scientists came out with includes some of the most important aspects of the Mandela effect, which is that the fact that we are looking at what looks to be, you and I are talking about it, we're talking about lucid dreaming. This scientist would call that a participatory universe.
oh, okay.
We're talking about how sometimes it seems like we're affecting things. And you mentioned like I don't know if I did this or if I already did this.
Right.
This particular scientist had a phrase for that. And he proved it in science, called it delayed choice. That this was conceptualized, it turns out to be exactly true. It's been proven to be true in recent years. So those are my clues. I'll go into detail in the talk.
Yeah.
And I've got even more cool stuff to share in the talk. So it'll be very fun.
Oh, I look forward to that so much. And I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know your heart is so into this. You're organizing it, and you're presenting, and you're doing that other thing, which is called, what is it again? um,
What
the,
is what?
the nonprofit thing.
Oh yeah, the 501c3. So that's just setting it up so that it's official and we're organized and we have
Right.
a basis for the future going forward. So that means that instead of just being a 1 or 2 event thing and like, well, they did a couple conferences,
Right.
we'd like to set this up to keep it going. We'd like to set it up to be able to give back to all the researchers that are out there working on this, to
Yeah.
really to give a lot of foundation and validity to the work that otherwise often has been ridiculed, mocked.
Right.
Some people would say gaslighted. So it's a community that may have felt like underdogs for a long time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what we're doing is creating a much stronger basis by which we can all go forward.
Yes. And this is just the beginning, because it's now, more and more people are, coming out, acknowledging, it's so big to acknowledge that this did happen the way that I say it happened, or that I, know it happened. And I'm not going to rationalize that, oh no, I just misunderstood, or, it's like, acknowledging it is so huge, right? And it's like more and more people are acknowledging it. And now, the science is backing it. And so this is just the beginning. So this is really exciting. We can play with our reality more, and let it play with us too. I love the surprises, like the coin, it's like when you get these surprises that you're not even expecting. And it's like a little symbol, or like a little message, or like a cosmic kiss or something, a God kiss, whatever it is, it's like.
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing and sharing these reality shift stories. I
No,
just
thank
love it,
you.
Dee.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, we'll talk to you again soon, and look forward to seeing you at the conference. On
Thanks
my
so
screen
much.
anyway.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.